Fiction news. Dozens of Palestinians were killed in clashes with Israel on Monday in Gaza as dignitaries convened in Jerusalem for the highly anticipated official opening of the U.S. Embassy. Palestinians throughout the West Bank and Jerusalem were urged to turn out en masse to protest the embassy move and take part in the 70th anniversary of the Nakba, as Palestinians call it, a holiday of protest. Over 1,600 people were wounded, 772 from live gunfire. They say over 40,000 people are protesting at the border, trying to tear down the fence, tear down border security. And last reports were that 43 Palestinians have been killed, and of course hundreds injured. And the numbers are probably going to get worse. And we've got all sorts of footage from the front lines over there. We're going to be bringing in a reporter from the Golan Heights. Yosef is going to be joining us. We're going to have Danny Ray from Righteous Defiance join us to talk about these issues as well. But this is another huge escalation. The numbers kept going up. First reports were a dozen, couple dozen. So it seems like this was a major defensive action here at the border, and at least 1,000 rounds were shot. They say over 1,600 wounded. Not sure exactly what the circumstances are. We have seen some of the footage of them, setting fires. There's reports of them throwing explosives. It's hard to say. We know they were using these little drones or kites to start fires in the fields on the other side of the border, and that, of course, was causing some trouble. It's a sad situation. It's sad when things degenerate like this and people are killed. I don't think anybody likes to see the loss of life. But when you look at the scenes, of what this is, it's like a war zone, right? They're coming with like 40,000 people. Not sure if people really can put that into perspective, but a mob of 10,000 people is already pretty huge, and when you got 40,000 people, it's like a huge music festival, and they're all, burning shit and using these slingshots. And there's some of the footage where you can really see how proficient they are with these weapons from yesteryear. But look at this guy. I mean, that was pretty slick. Hold on, this one's pretty nice too. But you can imagine the velocity, and if you were to get hit by one of these things, it'd be like a David versus Goliath type of situation, right? So you wouldn't want to get hit by these missiles. And I know that people get arrested in America all the time for throwing soda back at the drive-through or something like that, and they get charged with launching a missile. So if a soda can be a missile, I mean, these things here are definitely missiles. And we're not sure about the range, but I mean, it could be enough to do some damage. So I think this is the concern. Obviously, if you're looking at what looks like an invasionary force near your border, where they're starting fires, like it looks like a barbarian invasion. If you had a barbarian invasion near your border, time and time again, shit happens. They know better. They do this every year. It's like a music festival, like going to a concert or something like that. They do this every year. They've been doing this for quite some time now. And there's a lot of debate about whose land is it. We're going to have that debate. Whose land is it? That should be pretty interesting. Just kind of want to show you some of the maps that they were putting out there, I suppose, in the social media in that part of the world. And basically they were detailing maps of where to breach and the straight path right to the town across from that breach point. And there's 3 towns, so this looks actually like a battle plan for a coordinated attack if they were going to breach these areas of the fence. And of course, they threatened to go into these cities like barbarians and cut people's throats and start fires. And basically, it's basically like a rape and pillage from the old days. So this was the threat, was like the whole rape and pillage thing. So it wasn't just like, they were tugging on the fence and throwing rocks and starting fires. I mean, their goal, had they been able to break through, would have been to rape and pillage and kill people and the like. That's the whole point of this thing. So you got like 40,000 barbarians lining up at the border, waiting to rape and pillage, women and children on the other side. And undoubtedly, I mean, that's what would have happened, right? So a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, why did they kill? Why did they shoot? Listen, it's because the situation is like this, right? And I think we got another map to show how close the border is to innocent women and children. And of course, they've got they've been taking out some tunnels. They like to dig a lot of tunnels, go underground, and do the old school invasion. So that's basically the initial update. We're going to be bringing in a reporter from that part of the world, right there in Israel, front lines, and of course there's the whole Iran thing and everything else, and so we're going to be talking about it all. Let's see if we can get these folks online to discuss what's happening on the front line. So we've got Yosef from the front lines, mnglobal.org, joining us, and we've got Danny Ray from Righteous Defiance, which will be joining us here shortly. So Yosef, tell us what are people talking about over there right now?
Well, everyone's focusing on the positivity in Israel. We're focusing on the great move, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump showing up and bring the embassy in Jerusalem to its fruition, and it's a great celebration. It's a very happy day. Bibi Netanyahu, as well as many American and Israeli politicians, are extremely excited about this moment. At the border, there's basic protocol which is taking place, which is the Palestinians, or the so-called Palestinians, the Arabs, are very aware that if you get too close, then something could happen to you at the border, and they're kind of like testing their waters. But it's already a known fact. They know when they start to get shot. They know which lines not to pass, and even though I'm sure that the Israeli forces there are making it extremely clear with megaphones or whatnot, or warning shots, they keep walking forward. I don't know. There's not so much any country couldn't handle. There's the imminent threat of annihilation when it comes to the Jewish people, and we can't take chances at this point. So it doesn't matter. There's not so much diplomacy to be worked around at this point, and it's really just anger and frustration. I've seen Arab television speaking about how the embassy is bringing bloodshed to the Palestinian people, and I think it's a very, very far shot. You really need to stretch the story to get that far. America has its rights, just like it explained in the United Nations, and just like they explained in the White House briefings. They have the right to make their embassy wherever they want. That has nothing to do with anything. If the Palestinians, or so-called Palestinians, if the Arabs decide that because of these things that the Americans are doing, they're not going to talk to them anymore, and they're not a valid party for a peace agreement, that's on them. That has nothing to do with America. And of course, no blood is being spilled because of the building, other than the Arabs making this careless and ignorant decision of running into an army well armed and protecting its civilians.
Well, and just imagine what we would do if there was this kind of scene at the Mexican border. And it was like a bunch of cartel members threatening to ransack the neighboring cities right across the border. I mean, there'd be a lot of panic. CNN would be there live, NBC would be there live. Here, look at the barbarian horde that's trying to break through. Something must be done. And especially if there was a track record like the Palestinians and the like in that part of the world. If the Mexicans had a track record of committing terror attacks, shooting rockets, blowing up cafes, buses, and the like, and then there was like a horde of 40,000 of them, screaming, we're going to kill you all. Imagine what people would do. I mean, they would lose their minds, right? So you got to put this into perspective as far as what's going on. And there's a lot of debate about who owns the land and this and that, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit. But there's been multiple wars in that region for what's going on. Numerous times the Arab countries have tried to basically invade and commit another genocide there. So they've got a track record of invading and being hostile.
The Mexicans, for the most part, or the people that are crossing the Mexican border, I'm not talking about the cartel, I'm talking about the private citizens that are crossing the border, haven't, and even the Mexican cartels, they're really doing it for business. They're doing it for the drug trade, and what they're doing, and how they're doing it, and in many instances, unfortunately, they have the CIA and the FBI kind of backing them. But we're not going to get into that right now. But the point is, here we're talking about people that want to kill. They're here to kill. They're not playing games. They're not just trying to get citizenship, or they're not just trying to work at a Burger King for $10 an hour. They're here to take lives and take names and burn houses down and blow themselves up when they're close enough to a couple Jews, or civilians in general. So they're not here. They come to the border fence with rocks. They come to the border fence prepared for an invasion. With weapons, with rocks, with all kinds of improvised machinery that they make. They're not coming. It might look like a picnic from the outside, but it's no picnic at all. These people come with the tires, and they come with the Molotov cocktails, and they know the range, so they'll start with the long range, rock slingshots that are throwing the rocks. They know exactly what they're doing. They're not, and of course they also come with the camera. They know how important PR is in the 20th century. They come with their cameras and the ambulances, and of course it's all fake. They know exactly when they're supposed to get shot. They have the cameras and everything lined up, and you can also see that it's not so much about taking care of their wounded or taking care of their dead. They don't really care so much about them. They carry them like rags. Even when you see them carrying them, they don't carry them like professional medics on a stretcher. They'll have like 20 guys pulling, one guy pulling an arm, one guy pulling the leg. It looks completely messed up, and they're not doing it professionally. That person, if a person's really injured, he'll be breaking a couple bones by the time he gets into the ambulance. But it's not so much about that. It's more about the hysteria. It's more about the PR. You'll see a lot of cameras. It's all about trying to twist and twirl the story and warp it into something that it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're coming to this border with weapons, with hostile intentions. They've got a track record of killing and waging wars, and it's a sad attempt at diplomacy. There is no diplomacy when it comes to these people. They want it all. They want to conquer. They want to kill. It's pretty much that type of mentality. It isn't about trying to find a peaceful solution. I mean, most of Israel's neighbors have found peaceful solutions to the previous wars, but Syria is a little bit different. I mean, they've attempted to invade what looks like half a dozen times in the last century, if not more.
Yeah, they actually, we had a similar situation here. About 10 years ago, the same kind of action we're seeing now at the Gaza border. We've seen such action here on our border, and the Israeli military responded in the same way and quelled the attempt. There's not so many ways you can deal with such a mob and with such chaos. There's only, especially when they're hell-bent on using physical force and achieving their goals at any cost. There's only one way to stop it. So if you're going to see the numbers go up, there's this funny argument that they have, which is, there's so many Palestinians being killed. Why aren't there the same amount of Israelis being killed? Well, number one, the Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, the Arabs that are trying to breach the wall, they're exposing themselves, and they're very careless. They don't care so much about their own life, to be honest with you. They want to die. In a lot of instances, the families will send their kids after a fresh brainwashing in school. They'll send them to these rallies, and if the kid dies or gets injured, the Hamas will give that family $50,000 from the U.S. aid. So I'm very happy that Trump actually said to the Arabs, if you guys don't want to come to the negotiating table to make peace, we are cutting all of our aid, whether it's UNRWA or any other organizations, which are so-called peace organizations, humanitarian organizations. They take all that money and they'll give a lot of money, American money. They'll give it to the terrorist families of these kids. This has nothing to do with peace. This has to do with looking to extinct yourself or to become one with the Creator. In the name of jihad and parents which don't care to do that with their children to support themselves, pretty much.
Well, it's kind of like winning the lottery if you can convince your kid to go out there and get shot, and that's kind of like the mentality out there. They hide behind children. They launch rockets in residential neighborhoods, so they know if there's a retaliation, somebody's gonna eat it, and that's basically why we have. The Third Amendment to our Constitution, that we're not going to quarter troops in our homes because we don't want civilians to be involved. But they don't really care. In fact, it's part of the culture out there, and they basically all raise their kids with murderous tendencies, unfortunately. And we've all seen the videos. I just want to say this: if you're just joining us, latest numbers from this clash on the Gaza border is about 43 killed. Looks like we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,600 wounded, and 40,000 people are at the border with weapons looking to invade and hopefully breach the border and ransack the neighboring towns. We've actually picked up a map of their plans that are circulating around social media. Of course, it's in a foreign language, but this seems to be legit. And this was the strategy. These were the breach points, and you can see the neighboring towns, and they wanted to go in there and kill women and children. And so this, if this hadn't happened, if they had not pushed this mob back, then we really could have had like a rape and pillage from the olden days, where the barbarians.
Yes, Israeli history is still fresh with the Intifada. There was the first Intifada, and the second Intifada. That was Arafat was able to rally up muster up the hordes, and they came and crashed down on any cities. Interestingly enough, any city or any town, any village that Arab village that practiced the 7 laws of Noah did not take part in all of these activities, but for the most part the Intifada was basically the same thing we're seeing here, but the Arabs were successful in attacking Jews and it was terrible, and many Jewish people died in that time. This is unfortunately they're not what's it called? They're not the victims. The Arabs that come to the fence are not the victims. They can go home and open a business. They can go home and turn on the Wi-Fi and see if they can do something useful in their life, learn a new trade. They can grow some plants. They can grow some fruits and vegetables. They can figure out how to collect water and develop their life. Instead, they come to the border, and then the Israelis have no choice but to retaliate. Violence versus violence. And what's funny here is that it's not like in Israel, the Israelis will not let civilians get anywhere near this kind of stuff. They will they will protect their civilians and tell them you're not allowed to enter this area. Only military personnel are allowed to enter this area because it's dangerous. On the other hand, here we see children, women, they're just bringing them all the way to the front. They don't care, and they're really it's upside down world. I mean, I feel bad for the people who do this, and maybe it's because they're mixing the faith with the politics so strongly in that area, or maybe it's because they're not allowed to learn anything else. They have no other opinion, that they just don't know any better. I'm not sure what the deal is, but the point is, this is terrible. Why should women and children be told to go into a place where Israel has warned repeatedly is a threat to them, and putting those women and children's lives in danger? Absolutely outrageous. I think that is weak leadership from the Palestinians' part. Learn from the Israelis. Learn from any modern country. You do not send your women and children into a dangerous situation unless you don't care about them, and that just blows your cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And if these people wanted peace, they could have had peace. I mean, the olive branch of peace has been extended many times. It's just that they want more and more and more. And imagine them now, like, protesting the transfer of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, the capital. In what history book do you see Jerusalem as not the capital of Israel? Really? And there might be a few, but I think most people, when they think of Jerusalem, they certainly think Israel. And that's just the way it is. We fully support this president's move in that regard. And but in any case, these folks out there in the Palestinian territories, Arabs, if you will, that don't want peace, have done so by choice. They've been offered peace. They've been offered land for peace, just like land for peace was offered to, the other neighbors of Israel, the land that was basically conquered after the 1967 war, the Six-Day War, where all of these Arab nations tried to invade and massacre the Jewish people. So, I think there's something to be said about that angle of the story. It's something that isn't covered a whole lot in the mainstream or even in the independent media. We see a lot of hurtful labels and slander, and that's unfortunate.
I mean, I think Israel, yeah, absolutely. I think Israel's also behaving pretty well to these people, because they're not protesting because they don't have any electricity. They're not protesting because they ran out of water. They're not protesting because something terrible happened to their community. They're protesting something across the border in Israeli territory, and that has nothing to do with Israel almost. It's like an American interference with Israel. What's Israel supposed to tell them? No, we're not going to allow you to make an embassy in Jerusalem. What's Israel supposed to do? So these people kind of, I mean, if this is what makes them protest, then I guess they're living a good life. I don't know.
Well, it's a day of rage, and they can be angry if they want to, but when they amass 40,000 people at the border with weapons, regardless of the weapons, it shows their intention. I mean, these are obviously hostile actions, right? I mean, if this was happening in your neighborhood, would you call the police? Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. If this was happening in your neighborhood, would you call the police, or would you just let them continue their peaceful protest? This is not a peaceful protest, And had they breached the wall, their plans were to ransack and kill innocent women and children. So
I see a comment: save Gaza. Gaza is safe. These people are stepping out of Gaza and walking into Israel. This has nothing to do with Gaza being safe. This has to do with the people of Gaza doing a move that endangers their lives. Are they bored? Do they want? I mean, this is not a Nintendo game. Maybe they ran out of Battlefield 4 copies in Gaza. Maybe they don't have good Nintendo imports there. They should play some army games. How do Americans get over their ambitions? They'll play some computer games and relax and do their thing on Nintendo, because they know that life is valuable. These people think it's a game. I don't know. That's all I can say. They think they're having a great time, it looks like, but it's dangerous.
Well, yeah, they're walking right into the firing line and surprised. They take the risks, and of course, their intent here is an act of aggression. And as far as the comments, save Gaza, save Palestine, I've seen a lot of videos from people living the chill life in Palestine, going to college, going to the bar, going to the nightclub. They all got their cars. It's not so third world as you think it is. Like this, what you're seeing here, it isn't Gaza. This is like the fucking desert where they're just turning it into Burning Man, okay? But this isn't Gaza, what you're seeing here. They've been provided a very high quality of life, considering that they're not even, what do they produce? I'm not sure what their, main industry is out there.
It looks like it's rocks.
Yeah, rocks or terrorism.
I think they import rocks to Israel. That's the only thing they import. You can see them flying over the fence.
They've got an excellent quality of life due to PR and pandering, right? So they basically everything that they've got going on right now has been donated by the civilized world. And so they're living the high life like welfare recipients, and now they're just having a fit of rage. So they've got the right to be angry, they've got the right to protest, but this isn't an act of protest. These are literally acts of war. And if this was the same situation on our border, you bet that we'd open fire. So if you had the history there, if you had Mexico with a history of invading recently, killing people, wanting to slaughter, wanting to take over La Raza, through hostile intentions, amassing 40,000 people doing this kind of thing, plus there's their plans to basically invade the neighboring towns and to execute as many people as they could. I mean, you saw the Paris attacks the other day. It was just like one guy, random stabbings. I mean, that's what they want to do. They want to cross the border and kill as many people as they can. And
yeah, they want to terrorize. And the only way to stop them, and I just want to mention, because each time we speak about this, it's not just enough to talk about the actual problems. We also have to mention a little bit of the solution, which I told you. We'll take one example of Boko Haram, which means Boko Haram means anti-education. And that's just one of the examples of the mentality of these groups. They are against any other education other than the extremism of their members, and that is a very big danger for the freeing of the Palestinian mind, because it all starts with the education. If a kid is brought up and he's plugged for 8 years to commit jihad and to blow himself up, chances are that's what he's going to do. If these people are hell-bent on never educating themselves anything else other than the brainwash that they get, then we have a problem. That's why Gaza has to be a little bit more diverse, and it has to allow the 7 laws of Noah to enter, and at minimum. And of course, if they can become a more open society and actually produce something, then maybe someone will want to do anything with them.
What did you think of the Camp David Accords, where it basically established borders at pre-1967, I believe, and gave them East Jerusalem? I mean, do you think that's still a viable offer? And because it's
the Camp David. No, it was not. It was not a good idea. The people that were involved in it had good intentions, but they never had a chance to fulfill it. In other words, right after the Camp David Accords, the prime minister of Israel was killed. The one who was involved in it, he was assassinated. But his intention was to make. He said, "You want to make a deal? We'll make a deal." He made a deal, and his intention was that if they break the deal, he would retaliate and go completely on the offensive.
Okay, so
and make things up.
Okay, it sounds like we're getting a little
clear, but he never had the chance to do so.
Sounds like we're getting a little interference, ladies and gentlemen. We'll try and get...
Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit. Go ahead and try again. I just want to ask you a question. You're talking about the prime minister. Are you talking like politically assassinated, or are you talking physically assassinated?
No, he was physically assassinated, and there's still speculation that he was assassinated from within the government. But the point is that the problem with that was that it was not a viable peace process, because the Arabs eventually it became clear that they had no intention of keeping any part of the deal.
What's the current mentality for peace in this part of the world, or do you think it's beyond that and there needs to be an expulsion?
Well, there's the opportunity of peace. First of all, any Arab that lives in Israel today can apply and receive a sort of citizenship here, and he can work here, and so on and so forth. And there are many Arabs that have done so and have shown that they have no problem with Israel.
Looks
admitted into the state.
Go ahead, keep going.
So there've been many Arabs that have been admitted to the state and have citizenship and can work and do everything that they do, just like any other Israeli or any other Christian or any other person, that lives in the state of Israel. As far as what's happening in Gaza, the Hamas and the leadership there have a very strong grip, as I said, on all aspects of life there, and especially in the educational system and the media system. There is no competition. They are the only force, and they do not look like they're trying to integrate or trying to come to the talking table. And their leadership also has a lot of pressure from the extremists within their groups, which keep setting them, tearing the.
But what do you think would be acceptable terms and conditions for both sides? Do you think, like, if you had to find a middle ground, what do you think it would be?
Well, I mean, I would say that the middle ground would be that the Arabs should have representation in the state of Israel, and that the Gaza and the West Bank
looks like we're getting a little interference
part
there.
of the state of Israel, but they already have.
Okay, can you try that again, Yosef? Because it's cutting out. We're not hearing. We're not hearing your. We're not hearing your proposals here. Okay, so we're gonna try again. Looks like we got Danny Ray online. Danny Ray, I was hoping that you would jump in. What do you think of this conversation so far?
I think it's a difficult situation because, you have people who think that they are both equally, they both have equal rights to this land, and Abraham was the father of two different nations here, and this is the constant battle that we see fighting out, and it's been this way for a really long time. It's not like it's anything new, that this has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years now. So I do appreciate the fact of, these people don't have to be here protesting. They really shouldn't send their children and their women out to this. But at the same time, they feel like it's their right to go over there and fight too. So, I always try to look at it on both sides of the fence, because I'm not over there. I'm neither Jewish or Arabic. I'm, American and a Christian, which is totally different.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So it's like, it's really none of our business. We don't care, kind of thing. Really, I mean, how many people?
No,
really
it's
care?
not that I don't care. Don't get me wrong. I do care. I hate to see any lives lost over, battles and so on and so forth. But they've been fighting for forever. There's nothing that we can do about it until.
Well, they're trying
until it plays out.
Trump is making it a priority, and it looks like they're going to try and do peace over there as well. I think Trump is getting to like this whole Nobel Peace Prize kind of thing, and I think it would make a lot of people happy if he could deliver in the Middle East like he delivered in North Korea. And I think that's going to be a huge challenge, but it can be done. Israel has made peace with most of its other neighbors, except with Syria. I think things are still kind of messed up, and Palestine, is, I guess, more or less a misnomer. It's something from the Roman period and the Ottoman Empire period, but historically speaking, biblically speaking, I mean, that's the promised land, and I think that most people like it just the way it is, and we're going to try and keep it that way. I know there's a lot of terrorist sympathizers out there. There's a lot of people that like the Iran press TV. They like the whole Gaza rebel thing. They become, very anti-Semitic, throwing out terms that are basically like the N-word to a certain extent. And they think it's cool, And the next step beyond that is just basically getting that Nazi flag, joining the socialist, Luciferian party, and like the Democrats, joining that occult party on the left, and then just chanting their anti-Semitic slogans. And it won't be long before we're all in FEMA camps, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that Hitler, just like Hillary and the gang, were very much into the occult, channeling spirits and the like. I'm not sure if you've seen the videos of Hillary talking about channeling spirits, or seen documentaries like Hitler and the occult. But the Nazi party stood for Nationalist Workers Socialist Party, something to that effect. So it's a far left ideology that was heavily entrenched into the skull and bones, into the occult. And the documentary Hitler and the Occult lays it out quite clearly. And we're basically dealing with the same type of mentality back, today that we were back then in 1930s Germany. It's maybe not quite as developed or in your face, but you've all seen the David Hogg, give me your guns, salute, and all of that stuff. We're not that far off. They've been able to roll out a police state through their Reichstag fires like 9/11, and it's become less free, less American, and more Nazi-esque, more 1930s Germany. Wouldn't you agree, Danny Ray? I mean, everybody's got that, that feeling when they see the 5-0 or something like that. Like now it's, your heart starts to race and the adrenaline starts pumping, and you're like, oh, I don't want to get picked up. And we saw what the FBI was doing with their Gestapo-like tactics, right? I mean, it's not my imagination.
Yeah, it's really, even when I'm doing nothing wrong, I still get that slight panic attack personally. I think it just continues to get worse too, not just here but everywhere. A lot of people are realizing the escalation of the wars and rumors of wars, and we all fight our own wars internally and externally, so I just pray for peace over there. I really wish that we could have some sort of agreement where everybody could get along and no one else has to die. It really, I don't think that it's really a solution to continue to kill more people over, or even try to harm someone. There was a bit of an argument in the comment section that I was kind of just watching the comments before I got on here, and there's a lot of people who, they don't agree that these people have weapons. Well, a sling and a stone is a weapon. It might be.
I mean, if this stuff was happening in your neighborhood, you'd call the cops, wouldn't you? I mean, if you saw 40,000 people throwing rocks, starting fires, you'd call the cops. You'd be like, there's something wrong, right? I mean, this isn't normal. And when people like this amass at the border, a horde of 40,000 people with plans to actually cross over the border and start killing people in the neighboring towns, I mean, that's fucked up. Okay, and so people that are saying, oh, this is no big deal and they should just let them do their thing, they're trying to get through the border. This is actually like an attack here, and they're trying to invade, back in the old days when they would rape and pillage neighboring towns. I mean, it's still old school, old world over there, and this is exactly what's going on. And you start doing stuff like this, 40,000 people with plans to kill and murder. As soon as you get to the other side, you're going to open fire. This is like the zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think twice. I think we got Yosef back, right, Yosef?
Oh yes. Huh? Yeah, absolutely.
Would you pull the trigger? Yeah. Would you pull the trigger? I mean, if you were on the wall there and you saw this coming at you, I mean, would you pull the trigger, or would you just say, let them come through and kill some women and children?
Look, I would really hope that if I just showed them my gun, they would understand, and we would have a mutual understanding. But if I am, look, there's no. I out of all people, I really would have to think 1,000 times before pulling a trigger. I would maybe even pull up a microphone and really try to convince them to get away, and maybe take one or two as an example. But if they wouldn't, I would have to give the command, because I know that my nation is at risk. There's no game here. Unfortunately, they already have a track record. There's no hidden agenda here. It's all revealed.
They're trying to invade again with whatever means they have. Danny Ray, I want you to close us off. We're probably about as long as we're going to go on this particular broadcast. We'll try and keep them short and sweet. Danny Ray didn't get a whole lot of airtime, but she was nice enough to tell us about what's going on in the comments. I want Danny Ray to speak her mind here in the last few minutes of this show and tell us, what you want us to think about in closing.
Well, especially the people over there who are against Israel, I would like for you guys to remember who. It's so difficult for me to say in the right words, because I know there's a lot of people in here who just don't want to believe what's actually happening here. And they look at these people across the border there, and they're like, oh, these poor people, but they're the ones who are trying to invade a land that technically belongs to Israel. Israel's land is a holy land, and it's it's written in the Word what is going on and what will happen. We've seen.
It's also written in the Quran. The Quran mentions Israel 36 times in the context of it belonging to the Jewish people. That's just a tip over there.
Very nice.
Right, and honestly, we have to just remember that all of us are brothers and sisters ultimately, and in order to get to this place where I feel like we need to be, everybody feels like we need to be. We don't need any more war. We don't need any more deaths. And so we should just continue to pray for each other. You know, the word says to pray for your enemies. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do, but that is what we're commanded to do. And so I pray every day for all of our brothers and sisters across the world. It's I don't put anybody above anybody else, because where I read in the Word, it says that God is no respecter of persons. He doesn't look at us and see our skin color. He doesn't look at us and see whether we're a man or a woman. He looks at us and he sees whether or not we have Him written within our hearts. And so just lift each other up and continue to pray and keep on the armor of God, and make sure that you do those two very important things: read the Word and get it out there as far as you can. It's very difficult for a lot of people because you only believe what somebody has told you about it. You should probably get into it yourself and try to actually understand it for yourself. You can't trust what anybody has to say about it or their interpretation of it. You should get in it and figure out what it actually says for yourself. And I'm going to just leave it there.
Well, I think they would get a lot more if they actually did this through diplomacy. I think they would get a lot more, and over time they'd be able to get even more. Nobody gets exactly what they want in every deal or every negotiation, but it would be a start in the right direction. I mean, this is the 21st century, and either we're going to start acting a little more human-like, or if people want to get wild and wicked, people are going to get wild and wicked. But I don't think it serves their interest to get to do this. And I think it causes more harm than good. And as a result, people were needlessly killed today because of actions that could have been avoided. And had they just come to the table and work something out, start building a state, that's what they should have done when they had, Clinton, Ehud Barak, I think it was, and Arafat, together, talking about some kind of deal. I think he should have taken it. I think they should have started there. Had they taken that deal way back in the 90s, imagine what they might have today. And
they took it. They took the benefits, but they did not hold their side. They didn't hold their side of the deal. They took all the benefits of it, and nobody asked them for a refund when they completely ripped the whole deal up apart. But because as strategical people that within the region have explained, America has diplomacy, and they talk and we talk back, and then results occur. But in Russia, for example, or in the Middle East, it's if you come and tell someone, let's talk peace, the only thing you're saying in their mind is you're a weak person. That's all you're saying. And Donald Trump,
come invade me, basically. That's
exactly how they see it. That's how they see it in this part of the world. That's why America never understood the psychic of what's going on here. And actually, it would be better if Russia would be a middleman, because they're also very brutish and they understand the force of things. Look
at the Europeans. I just want to say, look at the Europeans. I mean, they basically offered them amnesty, and now it's it's an invasion. You know what I mean? So they see that kind of.
Europeans are learning it slowly, and unfortunately, in a bad way. Trump actually understands this psychological mentality. Trump understands this very well. He played it very well with North Korea, and he played it very well with Iran, with his collaboration on what they should do here in Israel with the Iran strikes. You see that the Irans are backing into a corner. Now they're saying they want peace, and now they're saying that they're going to expose all the American people that took bribes, and were like, by all means, drain the swamp. To get the Iran deal across, there were some Americans that took bribes to get it across. So they want to expose it. It's better for us. The point I'm saying is that you can tell the pattern proves it time and again that that in this part of the world, Some statements are only made by force, and that's why I think America in general in the past did not ever get a good grip on what's happening here. Everything was very wishy-washy, but now Trump understands that sometimes strength brings peace. And that's what he did with North Korea, and that's with his attitude towards Iran. And now with the embassy, it's just going to be the same thing. What we're seeing now, hopefully, will just blow over, and hopefully the Arabs will understand that there has to be another way.
Yeah, well, and I just want to, kind of like put out an open invitation. If we've got any people in the audience that are, Palestinian, they feel that they're Palestinian, and they want to talk the issues, I certainly want to open up the mic and the floor to have, some sort of balanced dialogue on this. Obviously, it's tough to get folks from that part of the world on the air. They're seems like they're busy or doing something else, but. Open invitation. Let us know in the comments if you feel like you have what it takes, and we'd certainly like to debate.
Yeah,
the issue.
by all means.
But I think that here's the track record. Here's the proof. I mean, they're burning our flags just like everybody else in that part of the world, and it's about conquering and killing. It's not about peace. And you can have the Stockholm syndrome and be in love with the terrorists if you want to. But I mean, we know our history. We're not buying it. I mean, they've had a track record of trying to basically invade and kill, throughout the 20th century, and this is just an extension of that. They're not interested in peace and love like we are. Okay, if this is happening in your neighborhood,
I want to add.
I just want to say this.
Yeah, I want.
If this is happening in your neighborhood, you would call the cops, right? If the Mexicans were trying to do this kind of stuff on the Texas border, people would get shot. I mean, this is just the way it goes. It's sad but true. Go ahead.
Absolutely, and also I was thinking that we're here on STFN News. We're very big about conspiracies and the government's being involved in different shady activities like 9/11, being an inside job, and so on. And there is no contradiction between that and the Arab mentality, and I'll explain why. Because even if you want to do an inside job, you need someone that's crazy enough to fulfill that inside job. Or someone that actually thinks that doing this inside job is going to bring some kind of salvation for something. And the reason why I think the big boogeyman that the government props up and funds sometimes, and we've seen Obama fund ISIS and different inside jobs being done specifically through the Arab world, is because they are dumb enough to think that violence brings peace, and they're dumb enough to think that there's a solution with violence. And that's why they're being used all the time. That means that if they would be left alone, they would do this alone. But but they're also being used and manipulated by the powers that be. So shout out to all the Arabs which think that they have this all under control. You're being used and manipulated, and you're just fulfilling your own self-extinction by playing into all this violence. You have to understand that there has to be another way.
Well, and the other neighbors have made peace: Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the like. I mean, there's just like these holdouts that really, they want war, they want annihilation. And I think the Saudi prince probably said it best to the Palestinians, Arab to Arab, is basically, take the peace deal that the Americans are giving you. Trust Trump, trust the plan. And that's what they should do here, folks. I mean, if they want peace, they need to get serious and grow up. And all the people out there that are throwing, out there, the haters in the comments, just fucking grow up. If this was happening near your area, you'd want the National Guard coming in and cleaning up too. I mean, look after 9/11, we went into Iraq, and I don't know how many people we killed over there, but people wanted blood, and it's just the way it goes, folks. I mean, you can't really criticize what's going on in this part of the world unless you're walking in their shoes. And so, do your history. That's why we're taking the position we're taking. Plus, I don't think any Christian out there skips over the Old Testament and the Bible. So you really got to pick on what side of the fence you're on here, folks. And so, we stand with the Holy Land and all the people that live there. And, this isn't, to be mean to people of the Muslim faith. I mean, we have all the respect possible for them out there. We wish them peace. We wish them well. But this is not peace. And, in fact, it's an act of aggression, what they're doing here. So, we feel bad. Our hearts and prayers are with those that have been killed here, and we certainly don't want to see things like this. But we don't want to see, a mob of 40,000 people crossing over the border like barbarians, killing women and children in the neighboring towns, which is basically what why this erupted today. and so we have the maps.
Right.
and we-
These images remind me of the Vikings movies. You know, when you see a bunch of wild men running across a big plain of, a big
Something
big
like that,
field
yeah.
or something.
I was thinking. I was
the-
thinking of the European times when they would basically rape and pillage neighboring city-states, and that's how they basically grew their wealth. It's old school. What they're trying to do here is old school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't they know that 2018 this doesn't
I
work?
don't know.
They should have
send them the memo, ladies and
memo.
gentlemen. I appreciate everybody coming in. Check out Yosef at mnglobal.org, mnglobal.org, and check out Danny Ray at Righteous Defiance. Danny Ray, Righteous Defiance. This is Stranger Than Fiction News, wishing everybody out there the very best. And if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
You are the resistance.